38.
Okay. In broad terms, dealing with the regulation that CASA oversights specifically, particularly in the context of a regulatory reform process that has now stretched over a decade, and what we have seen looking at it is that with changes of CEOs or directors of aviation safety, there's been quite a change in approach to that. Not just the current but previous, and I'm just looking to understand what strategic guidance, as in long-term vision, comes from the policy area of your department, Mr. Mrdak, that guides the people who are involved in regulatory reform in terms of how the government wishes that to go forward, which stakeholders are involved. Can you talk to me through how you set the policy directions for that?
I mean, look, the first priority as set out in the white paper is actually to bring a lot of that regulatory reform process to a conclusion. You're absolutely right. It's a process which started almost a decade and a half ago in various guises. It's been through various iterations. The white paper actually set out an intention to bring some of the key suites of regulatory documents to a close. And what we've been involved with is to try and do that. The stakeholders involved are diverse, depending on the regulatory package involved, be it maintenance or pilot licensing or whatever it has been. There's been a diversity of industry interests. The big elements will come into play, like the maintenance suite for the heavy end of the industry, will come into play with 1 July. With the changes there. There are other suites which come together. The drafting process is nearly complete for just about all of the packages now. I think we threw additional resources to pay for drafters and the legal processes to expedite that. I think the bulk of the packages now are due to be completed by the end of this calendar year and have been through various consultative process. Our role, and you're absolutely right, the regulatory, what we've tried to do is to get a suite of modern regulations that tries to get the right balance for CASA in terms of some of the things we've been trying to do in terms of industry behaviour and the like, trying to provide where we need to, prescriptive but less prescriptive wherever we can. So we certainly involve ourselves with that element. Much of our work over the last 2 years has to be trying to keep that suite of regulatory reform documents coming to a conclusion. That's happened.
George, can I ask, one of the issues that we've seen is that under Mr Byron, for example, there was very much an approach saying industry are the current practitioners, they probably know best, so let them bring forward a solution, and if CASA has a safety case as to why that shouldn't be adopted, then they can argue that out. It appears now, from feedback I'm getting from industry, that focus has swung more to we will consult, but at the end of the day, CASA will do what it sees fit. Now, that's a fairly substantial change in direction, and I'm just wondering, was that direction set by policy from your level, or was that left largely to the discretion of the Director of Aviation Safety?
I think it's come largely because of, to be honest, I suspect some of the change of focus has come through the industry consultation. I certainly know in some of the regulatory suites where certain segments of the industry have sought greater certainty, including in the maintenance suite, where they're looking for much more prescription around some of the elements to end what they saw as some uncertainty for them in how the regulations will be implemented. So I think that process has come through both more so the industry feedback from certain parties about what they wanted to see in the regulatory focus, that the simple adoption of a safety management system approach in certain areas was not going to meet the needs of some levels of the industry.
But the concern, though, Mr Mrdak, is that what I'm hearing from certain sections of the industry, and EMS is one, in the rotary side, and I didn't get time to confirm this with Mr McCormick today, but my understanding is that the person in CASA who is writing the regulatory reform has a general aviation fixed-wing background and a light helicopter conversion, but no experience in multi-engine IFR helicopters, no experience in the EMS industry, and yet is now trying to tell operators through that industry what their future regulations and operating standards are going to look like. And they are very unhappy with that. And so my question comes back, why has there been this change to basically have CASA dictating what's going to occur as opposed to constructively engaging with industry? And has that been a policy that has come from government, or is that something that's just evolved with changes of personality?
I don't know the specifics of that particular regulatory regime, and I'm just not familiar with that level of detail, Senator. I'd have to seek advice from Mr McCormick in relation to that particular matter. But I would say it's probably more likely to be the latter. I think it's probably as evolved as the circumstances of the consultation industry views and CASA views have formed. But I can't comment on that specific example, I'm sorry.
What role do you see for the board of CASA between yourself and the policy level of the department and the actions of CASA? Do you see that they should be setting strategic direction and guidance for the CEO? Very
much so, and that is their role. The board is there to provide advice to the Director of Aviation Safety to complement his skill set. And to provide strategic direction for the organisation. That is the role of the chair and the board members.
And so have they had an active role in this issue of the emphasis and direction of regulatory reform?
I couldn't comment, Senator. I certainly believe that they have been a very active board, but I don't have a level of detail in relation to specific regulatory measures to give you a comprehensive answer on that.
So what level of oversight do you then exercise over the board of CASA in terms of the appointment and the performance of that group of people as a board?
We certainly provide advice to the Minister in relation to the key documents the Minister deals with, corporate plan, statement of expectations, statement of intent, those types of areas. We provide advice to the Minister in those matters. We certainly provide advice to the Minister in relation to the composition of the skills of the board, and Minister will take a decision in relation to appointments. We certainly do provide advice to the Minister on how we think the organisation is travelling in terms of meeting their performance indicators. But at the end of the day, they are a independent statutory body who reports directly to the Minister through the board in relation to the discharge of their responsibilities. We provide advice to the Minister in relation to what we believe are some of the directions that are being followed by the organisation.
Okay, when can the Parliament expect to see some of the updates that you've been saying the Minister has been getting about the various implementation of the white paper?
We can certainly provide you with some advice in relation to the status of the measures. They range, as I said, we've been implementing many measures, such as our approach to bilateral negotiations, right through to the suite of regulatory measures, NASAG, but there's a lot. I mean, I think today the House of Representatives had introduced legislation in relation to particular elements of protection of assets and the like. So there's been a range of legislation that's been introduced. We are well progressed in most elements of the white paper, and also the white paper. The real achievement of the white paper was to bring together for the first time the comprehensive policy positions in relation to the full suite of industry measures covering aviation and provide a range of objectives going forward. That's where the white paper served a very good purpose. Okay,
certainly either individually as a committee, I'd welcome a more detailed update or briefing.
We'd be happy to do that for you.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, and that's the case. Mr Mrdak, to you and your officers, thank you very much. There's no further questions. Hansard and Broadcasting, wonderful job as usual. To Stephen and Kirsty, what more can I say? Thank you. On behalf of the committee, Minister, thank you too. That concludes today's hearing, eh? Committee now stands adjourned.
Chair, if I may, just on behalf of the Parliament, I think this may be the last occasion we meet for the 43rd Parliament. So can I, on behalf of the Portfolio Department and agencies, thank you particularly for your chairing and all of the members of the committee. We do enjoy working with you. I know they're long days for all of us, but we enjoy working with the committee, and thank you very much for your forbearance and support over the term of this Parliament. I look forward to working with all of you in the next Parliament.
Thank you, Mr Mrdak. And all the excitement, I'd forgotten about the election.
One more thing on the record.
Thank you.
A question on notice, a question that was asked by Senator McDonald regarding the appointment of members to the Moorebank Intermodal Board.
Have I got a job, have I? No?
Okay. The Minister has informed me that those appointments will be formally announced in a few weeks.
Fullness of time. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, thank you. Good night.